I hope this is working. Oh boy. Bum 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 bum. Hey, okay. Alright. Plop. Pa-pa-da. Oh, come on now. All right. Let's see, where am I at? Oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. Oh, I apologize. I'm trying to get this all situated. I thought I was ready, but I rushed to take a shower real quick. And here we are now. Post. Okay. One more. Post. Okay. There we go. Finally. Pow, kapow. Bump, ba-bump. Bump, ba-bump, bump, bump, ba-bum. Okay. Alright. Hope everybody's doing well on this fine Sunday morning. Alright. We're going to dive right into it and get through this. We just got a few chapters, and they are short. So, yeah, we just really got about 40. Dog's going crazy. Really about 40 some odd pages to go there. So, yeah, we're going to start out. Chapter 34, to Saedra's Shrine. So yeah, that's kind of what's been going on. They dropped off Malam at his home, and then they went to a tavern, and the tavern owner's like, "Hey, you need to learn a lesson." It went a little crazy. Here's where we're at. So chapter 34, to Saedra's Shrine. The morning did not greet the travelers kindly after they left Sigdag's. Though no winding roads or hidden alleyways were needed to march their way to the gate, the dimmed brightness of the day, due to heavy overcast, presented a subdued view. Building upon building scrunched together, as though some giant clumped them together. I should probably change that to clumped them so. Many of the disheveled homes whistled in the wind through the gaps in wood created by time and neglect. Dark clouds shed wet flakes of snow. Dark clouds shed wet flakes of snow, lightening their load as they drifted across the sky. Already accumulating, layers of white mantled the rooftops and pockets of the streets, less trampled upon. The smell of salt from the choppy seas mingled with the aromas of baked breads and soups in early preparation. One particular tavern, with an open dirt plot beside it, hosted a large fire pit where a couple people were, despite the weather, tending to a few spitted fowls, brushing them with coats of flavorful bastes. Before arriving at the gate that led to Saedra's Shrine, yet still within eyesight of it, Ripson stopped the group and moved off to the side of the road. He rubbed his temple with the knuckle of his index finger. I have some business I need to take care of. I can trust you four to take care of all that you need at the shrine. I can trust it. No, it's not a question, Taylor. I can trust you four can take care of all that you need at the shrine. Are you certain? Dieter scratched his shoulder as he glanced skyward. Say means a rather large place. I'm concerned we might not be able to rejoin if we split up. He placed a reassuring hand on the farmer's upper arm. I won't be terribly long, but better to take care of it on my own than to drag you four along to do what I have to do. I ought to be here when you return, but if I'm not, meet me in front of Malam's. Sounds reasonable. He turned to the other three, who nodded in agreement. With a curt bow, Ripson pivoted and walked in the direction they came from. After a few steps, he stopped and called out to the Mahrians. Oh, and you two? When we have a private moment, we must talk. Alright. I need to get a drink. I drank all my drink and I forgot to fill it up, so I'll be back real quick. Time out to drink. Drink. Okay. There we go. Back to. Okay. Neither one made a move or spoke up to question what the monk wanted to speak about. The knots in their stomach tightened as they drew their cloaks closer. Coming to the same conclusion, the friends traded a knowing look before gaining enough fortitude to delicately move toward the gate leading to the shrine. Banners celebrating Saedra's calling. A bright yellow comet centered in a rectangular sky blue lazily flapped from the near constant breeze. 6 sentries, 3 on each side of the opening, stood attentively as they studied any and all who happened to walk by. Off to the north, still within city walls, a wide training ground and a moderately sized stone building dressed in the same tired-looking banners provided the quarters for those stationed here. Halt! One guard held up a spear, not quite threatening them, but presented as a simple show of force. The group simultaneously turned. He spoke again once he was satisfied with their compliance. What business do you have at Saedra's shrine? The group simultaneously turned to Dieter, as though he had to answer for them. The farmer frowned before pointing toward the sashes Jaharl and Tamila were wearing. They have come to receive Saedra's blessing. The guard lightly tapped the stone street with the butt of a spear. A frown creased his weathered features. It takes 4 of you to do the job of 2? Where exactly are you from? It's been a season or 2 since the calling. Did you get lost or something? There. The guard cut off the farmer with a sharp wave of his spear. They have tongues, don't they? Let them answer. Jaharl and Tamilia stepped forward. She glanced at her friend, grimacing as she fidgeted where she stood as though she needed a pee. We're from Mahri. It's in the mountains bordering Alteo. We didn't get lost. Our journey was delayed, he added in an expressionless tone. I'm aware of where it's at. The guard turned to his own. Hey, Hugin, Elva, you've got brains for this. Has anyone been through here claiming to be from Mahri? That's the place with the good honey, Arturo, Vold interjected. That's about all I know. That's about all there is to know about them. Must be some small village, I'm guessing. Arturo straightened his gambeson. Well, anyone want to answer my question? I haven't heard anyone representing Mahri coming through. They've got records there at the shrine. So it's not like they'd pull a trick on us and get away with it. Hugin pointed in the direction of the shrine. I haven't heard anything about them coming through as well. I think they're the last ones in Parale to arrive. Elva drummed her fingers on her spear. Oh, all right. Arturo turned his focus back to the group. And what about you other two? Unless Saedra's come down to set us straight, Kiddos and Olia were the only two involved. This time, Josephine stepped closer, accompanied by her husband. My husband and I are wishing to seek guidance and answers from the priestesses. We are from the fields south of Clow Hall. My sign was sent to Sage's calling when summer was still fresh, but we have heard nothing about his travels. Arturo stared, softened slightly, but not too exaggerated to reveal his feelings entirely. I have a couple young ones myself who avoided plague and harm alike. Pray, Saedra, with the war and those damn Saul, I'd walk in your boots down the same path you're walking, ma'am. Thank you, Josephine and Dieter bowed in appreciation. Though can't say the priestesses will share that sentiment. Doesn't hurt to try. It's not like they'll mistake you trying to receive the blessing instead. Precisely. Direct and answering, her focus on Arturo kept him from noticing the Mahrians forcibly hold back their nervousness. Now, pass through and be on your way. He returned to his station and resumed his watch at the gate. The four walked through the gate and peered out to the west. To the south of the road, a wall, matching the height of the cities, followed the road where it snaked until it neared the shrine and gave way to the expanse of waters beyond. To the north, strong, tall pine trees shielded the road as best as it could from the sheer cliffside which touched the corners of Samine's wall, acting as the natural protector and furthering the people's belief in Saedra and that she had divinely selected them to carry on her glory there. Okay. Arturo called from behind the group. Follow the path. You won't have to worry about anything. It's a straightforward trek, like a shot arrow. You'd have to be addle-brained to get lost. No wildlife or beasts to be concerned about? Dieter surveyed the northern direction. Birds won't bother you, and in all the years I've been here, the most dangerous creature to find itself on this road were some rabbits and squirrels. And rock slides? Every now and again. But it's been some time since the last one. Okay, let's go. Jarl urged the others to follow suit. He's got the spirit. Blessed travels, and may Saedra provide you the answers you seek. Thank you, Arturo. The four began their short march to Saedra's shrine. With little to say, they silently headed toward their destination. Dense clouds continued to cover the skies above, muting the colors of the view before them. A thickening layer of snow accumulated on the southern wall, as well as the road the group traveled on. The darkened trees provided a little color, but other than those silent sentinels bristling in the wind, the white snow, the grays from the walls and clouds, the drab browns of the cliffside, and the darkening sapphires of the ocean painted most of the scenery around them. The chill that permeated throughout Samine freely roamed on the short path, its bitterness much more on display. Even at a slight breeze, the wind bit sharply with icy fangs through the group's clothing. Carried along the wind, the dark mass of clouds moved across the sky, undulating like a snake on the dusty ground as it continued to snow unceasingly. To Jahal and Amelia, a constant rhythmic droning eventually caught their attention. When one glanced off to the trees or up the cliffside, the other peered forward. Then they'd give each other a questioning look and resume searching for the source of the continuous noise. What's wrong, you two? Josephine tried to follow the same spots they were weakly searching. It wasn't clear how long she'd been paying attention to them, but Amelia answered with a scowl. Don't you hear that noise? It almost sounds like someone breathing loudly and taking long breaths. Charles snapped his head slightly upward as he shielded his eyes from the flurry of snowflakes. The old woman tilted her head to an angle, so her ear faced the ocean. She smiled after listening for a moment. You have quite the imagination, but you're not wrong. It does sound like someone breathing. And then what is it? The wind catching something in the trees? Camellia tried to study the trees from a distance, more thoroughly, but to no avail. With the enthusiasm of soggy bread, Dieter provided the answer. It's the sea, and the waves against the shore. Oh, Both the Maharians marked simultaneously. I know we're not too far, but it's that loud? Tamilia's eyes widened. Loud? Sounds different from River Split, Jarl added. She took a moment to concentrate on the sound. Yeah, I didn't even notice that until you said something. Before too long, the four stood at the base of the moderately steep slope leading to Saedra's shrine. The snow began to fall even more heavily than before, nearly blinding the four from seeing much else beyond the structure. At the top of the incline, the shrine proudly stood with its back to the cold, endless waters westward. Similar statues to the ones at Samin's eastern gate proudly stood at the corners of the building, serving as pillars and columns to hold up the roof. Throughout the front of the roof, small scenes portray different important tales involving Saedra, including a relief representing her comet painted a shining yellow, as well as the gracious act of kindness that saved Katos and Aaliyah, the progenitors of mankind. Lead the way. Dieter patted Jaharl on the shoulder. Dieter patted Jaharl on the shoulder. His wife gently shoved Tamilia forward. We only have a question to ask. You're here for a blessing. Time for the two of you to take charge. Jaharl turned to his friend and inhaled deeply. Ready? Tamilia held back a wince as she focused on the immediate task at hand, and not the reason for the current predicament. She I can't read now. What the heck is wrong with me? She sighed sharply out of the corner of her mouth before slowly nodding. Aye, let's go. Without another word, the four walked up the hill and steps to Saedra's shrine, a beacon offering both solace and torment on the precipice of the Kingdom of Perail's western seashore. Dun, dun, dun. I don't think I've got any more. Yes, yeah, there are no more index points, so we're just going to go right into it. Chapter 35, The Ceremony. So yeah, this is kind of we've already hit our big points there, so it's just kind of wrapping up stuff. Chapter 35, The Ceremony. Heavy wooden doors studded with polished engraved bronze dots and decorated with carvings celebrating Saedra stoically stood, unperturbed by the arrival of the four. Unfazed by the weather, the structure neither welcomed nor dismissed them. It merely observed their approach with disinterest. As they ascended the final steps, Jaharl clenched his jaw in an effort to tolerate the knots tightening in his guts. Don't suppose any of you see a handle, do you? The other three glanced about before Dieter answered. Nope. Looks like we'll have to knock or go right in. It sure does. Tamilia made a fist and squeezed tightly before opening her hand. When they reached the top of the platform, Jaharl quickly closed the distance and shoved the door. He caught himself from toppling backwards, earning snickers from Tamilia and Josephine. He glowered in their direction, then tried to push open the door once more. Nothing. I guess we need to knock. Jaharl shrugged and wrapped his gloved hand on the door. With the sounds of the waves of the ocean filling the air, they waited, but no one answered. Maybe they didn't hear it. Tamilia appeared to her left and right, trying to spot a window or something, or some opening to shout into. Knocking a little harder might wake them up. It is still morning, after all. Dieter approached the door and pounded it with a heavy hand, which felt like he was trying to break down the door. Tamilia gave Josephine a look of concern. Is he trying to break down the door? Yeah, we're gonna nix that. Boop. There we go. She moved behind the Maharian pair and placed a hand on both of them. Don't worry. Relax. He's not going to tear the shrine down. Like a ray of warm sunshine piercing the dreary cold, the two took a breath. Their nerves dissipated and gradually ceased by the time the door creaked open. Not quite wide enough to allow them inside, the gap also did not provide enough space for them to discern who may have opened it. However, before they could react and enter, a sharp voice called from within the shrine. What business do you have here? Four traded glances. Speak or be gone with you. We're here to answer Saedra's calling. Jaharl moved to a spot that provided a better view to see through the opening, while also displaying the sash he had been given. 4 of you? Don't make me summon the guards. They'll toss you in some rank. The younger ones are here for the blessing. My wife and I are here to learn some answers, Dieter firmly stated as he leaned forward, nearly wedging his face in the open space. Pause followed the farmer's statement before the door creaked open farther, revealing a priestess, roughly the same age as the Mahrians, bundled in thick white robes. She motioned with a curt wave for them to enter, then slammed the door shut once the 4 were out of the weather. The inside of the shrine was more like a great hall. 2 rows of pillars, similar in design to the ones outside, provided more stability for the shrine's ceiling as they led deeper into the structure. On each side, stone walls cut off the other portions of the shrine where the priestesses lived and performed other duties beyond the devotion of their goddess. Towering stands of metal populated the praying hall. Their flat tops, in the shape of a circle, held a wheel of mostly unlit candles, providing little illumination to the room. "Wait here," the priestess held an expression tinged with souring contempt while she departed to retrieve the mother priestess. She disappeared behind one of the doors to the right, while the group bided their time by looking about the entrance and attempt to discover something to capture their attention, for however briefly. After some time, she returned, accompanied by an elderly woman who had held... Wow. Why can I not read today? After some time, she returned, accompanied by an elderly woman who held onto the younger priestess's arm, like an acorn on a branch caught in a steady wind. They stopped a few steps in front of the visiting group. Though the pair wore similar garb of linen, the elderly priestesses bore small cuts of topaz along the hem, as well as along the ends of the sleeves. The old woman, despite carrying the weight of age, held herself in a dignified manner, for as short as she was, she stood as tall as any other, if not taller. Her hazel eyes judiciously surveyed the 4 before her. "Welcome to Saedra's shrine. May the goddess bless your lives." The stately priestess made a bow, which was mimicked by the younger one, and answered in kind by the 4. "I am Myrene, the, as one would put it, the one in charge of this delightful commune. This is Osena, and she spoke to me of your arrival. I can answer what I can, but don't begrudge me of whatever answers may spring from my tongue." Farmer flashed a frown before immediately pivoting to his question. "Greetings. Our names are Josephine and Dieter. My wife and I..." Why would I say it that way? I don't like that. We'll fix that. "My wife and I come from the farmland south of Clohall. Though still somewhat unfamiliar with all of Parail's customs, our people have made efforts to be more understanding of our neighbors, to build stronger trust and better trade. Our son and his wife were sent to answer Saedra's calling, but have not yet returned. We wish to know if he has been here." A disapproving look cut into Myrene's weathered features. It is not customary for the family or others to send out search parties. While it is painful, sometimes the answer Saedra gives is that of silence, and we have to suffer what we must to ensure we please her before the next calling. "Are you saying you know for certain that he's not been through here? I haven't even mentioned his name." The farmer's expression shouldered on that of an indignant glare. "Not at all. I was simply pointing out that those in Parail do not try to deceive in order to receive the blessing, for they know it is a divine order, and to go against it would mean a horrible punishment." Jarl shifted his weight from one foot to the other as Tamilia squeezed her hands into tight fists. They internalized a short prayer of thanks when neither of the farmers looked toward the pair's direction. "I'll keep that in mind and inform our neighbors upon my return. However, since we are here, I would like to know about my son." She nodded with understanding before leaning toward the younger priestess. "I can have Osena check our records." "Will you be all right here by yourself, Mother Myrene?" "I'll be fine." She smiled weakly before facing the farmers. "What is your son's name?" This time, Josephine answered. Our son's name is Saedra, like that of the god of song. She nodded with a faint grin of pride. The very same. How lovely to think he shares the name of Saedra's son. Is he also quite gifted in the arts of singing and song? Perhaps too much so. A melancholic smile broke through Dieter's tough demeanor. Mother Myrene chuckled. I see. And his wife's name? Her name is Passia. Saedra and Passia. The elderly priestess massaged her cheeks in an effort to jog her memory. Regrettably, I do not recall a pair of names like that. Passia is quite foreign to me, but Osana will check our records to make absolutely certain. With that, the younger priestess bowed and departed for the doors off to the left side of the hall. Mother Myrene turned to the pair of Mahrians. And what about yourselves? Pardon me, Mother, Josephine interjected. Yes, she pivoted back to the farmers. Maybe to help us better understand when we are asked by our neighbors. Could you explain a little more about why the calling must be answered and delivered as it is? It would be a hassle to track back over here to repeat a question, wouldn't it? Mother Myrene acknowledged Josephine's willingness to learn with a glint in her eye. It would. The two women traded warm smiles. Saedra's calling mirrors what happened to Katos and Aaliyah. Do you know who they are? They were saved by Saedra, who chose to save them for their qualities from some great disaster. Precisely. She saved them from a world temporarily lost to darkness. Bless her. But if something were to happen to those who are sent to represent Katos and Aaliyah, why not allow another in their stead? Mother Myrene took a deep breath. This has been asked many times before, but the answer is unwavering. Saedra saved our shared bond, our beginnings from all the dangers bred during that horrid time. However, if she does not intercede, does not protect, does not guide those of us who bear the titles, honoring and revering her during the calling, then she has made her feelings clear. She is displeased with us, and we must suffer to atone for our failings. If someone or a group were to try to deceive us, ultimately to deceive her, their punishment must be severe and serve as an example to others. But to deceive a goddess like Saedra sounds like folly. Surely she would know. Why not allow her to take care of it herself? Yes, but if we, as people, we who are all connected by Katos and Aaliyah, thus owing each other our love and our scorn, our support and our justice, if we don't hold ourselves and each other accountable in an effort to raise ourselves to a better being, then we are no different than those detestable followers of Atumu who died trying to convince us we are nothing more than animals who ought to roam the fields and stick to climbing trees instead of chopping them down for our own uses. Absorbing the conversation, the farmer glanced at her husband, then leaned a little closer. I don't like those monks. Are they still like that? Contemptible as those fools are, they had heart and mind enough to expel the murderous sect poisoning their monastery. Should have happened sooner. The bloodshed would not have been nearly as bad as it was. The elderly priestess sharply exhaled through her nostrils. My complaint aside, they were eventually able to overcome those who only wanted to harm others. I see. Josephine looked as though she was committing all of Mother Myron's words to memory. Thank you for explaining. I hope you aren't too riled up from thinking about them. The leading priestess laughed. Not to worry. We are who we are, and a little anger now and again reminds me I'm still alive. Anyway, my sisters have seen and heard worse from me. As she was finishing her remark, Osena rejoined. She did her best to ignore what she heard to deliver the results of her inquiry. I was unable to find anyone with either of those names in our records for the most recent calling, Mother Myron. The farmers swallowed their grief as Dieter placed a firm hand on his wife's slumping shoulder. I am truly sorry. Mother Myron clasped her hands together. May Saedra find it in her heart to forgive your possible transgressions. Dieter straightened his back, bristling at the loaded accusation. That's all right. He easily could have traveled west to the Rowanian desert instead. Our boy's like a bird who'll let the wind take him wherever it blows. My husband's correct. He's alive. We can feel it. This time, she clasped her husband's forearm as a form of assurance and support. Well then, I will pray for Saedra to guide the winds here. The farmers bowed respectfully in unison. Thank you, Mother Myron. The frail woman bowed in response, took a moment in silent prayer, and turned her attention to the younger pair once more. I noticed the sashes, but simply wished to know, before we make our preparations, as Osena can make the appropriate records, but who are you, and where do you come from, to answer Saedra's calling? Thinking moment. Here goes. He cleared his throat. I am Jaharl. His friend stepped forward, but upon noticing only she did, she sheepishly stepped back. And I'm Tamilia. And we are from Mahri to receive Saedra's blessing. The moment those words jumped from his tongue, the tightening in his gut loosened. And whatever may come, let it. We have more pressing matters at hand now. With the weight of their secret somewhat shed, he could only wait for it to be replaced with this new deception. Wonderful! Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Mother Myron beamed a smile and clapped gleefully. Mahri was the last place in Perail to send anyone. I mean, I understand with the war with Olteo and being so secluded, but I would have thought you would have arrived with the calendar couple, or sometime shortly after. I imagine duties at home made that difficult, correct? A pause followed, as Jaharl was more than willing to allow the priestess to do all of the talking. When he realized she had asked him a question, he lied as best as he could. That's right. We're from a small mountain village. We weren't ignoring the calling, but we had to make sure everything was prepared for us and the village in case there were any delays. I see. Mother Myron rubbed her fingertips with her thumbs in an effort to ward off the cold from creeping in. I am filled with joy to have you here. Like I said, we've been waiting for so long. From our records, it's usually the couple from Torness who are behind and show up last, but they arrived some time ago. We were so concerned for Mahri, but now, praise Saedra, she has seen to it that you have answered her calling. As though rejuvenated to a more youthful self, she excitedly bowed, joined by Osena. The leading priestess then softly instructed her sister to gather the others to prepare for the ceremony. Even after her younger sister left to inform the others, Mother Myron's smile held firmly in place. We will not be too long, please. Approach the dais and the statue of Saedra up at the front. Dieter and Josephine, I ask that you two follow me. We cannot watch. Customarily, only the priestesses and those involved with receiving Saedra's calling may partake or bear witness to the ceremony. A gruff grunt escaped Dieter's throat. Fair enough, lead the way. As much as he may not have liked to miss the ceremony, the farmer offered his arm as support, which Mother Myron accepted. The three walked in the direction Osena had gone to gather the other priestesses. Once they had left, Jaharl and Tamilia glanced around the area as they walked deeper into the shrine. Their steps echoed throughout, intermingling with the droning of the sea's waves lapping against the cliffside outside. The pair stopped at what they thought was an appropriate spot a few steps away from the dais. I'm probably saying that wrong. And surveyed the opening of the shrine again. Thank goodness Josephine wanted to ask more questions. Tamilia peeked behind the columns to make absolutely sure no one was near. Jarl checked the other side of the hall. Agreed. Still mad at Hardwin and Vanine, though. As you should. As you should be. No, those idiots. Idiot's too kind. But it'll have to do being in a sacred place like this. Tamilia grumbled in agreement. We'll have to go to Perail Castletown after this. But why did they even go that way? Why not at least get this done first? I don't know. But we need to find them there. Even if they went down to Rowan, we have to find them before heading back. If they're not there, they could have gone north to Dolaire. Why, though? Like heated daggers, Jaharl's words flew out. I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to know. She refrained from shouting and approached her friend. Through a clenched jaw, she hissed out her response. That anger isn't going to chase away winter. It's here. We're going to have to deal with this, with whatever these idiots decided to do. Well, it's not going to stop me from being mad at them for this nonsense. We both have the right to be mad. You figured something like this would probably happen, so you shouldn't be nearly as angry. Tamelia's eyes locked with her friend's. You even said as much. Probably had the idea they ran south quicker than you expected. Being right about something has never felt so awful. And Jaharl pressed his foot into the stone floor as hard as he could in some vain attempt to leave an impression. Better than blind hope and having it dashed. Is it, though? You had hope. I was powerless and simply watched the tree fall. Tamelia opened her mouth to answer, but sounds of the door opening again and footsteps dissuaded her from continuing the conversation. Instead, she gave him a sour look before speaking in a hushed tone. Let's calm it down for now. With anger shadowing his features, he reluctantly nodded. An answer slid out of the corner of his mouth. Right. Sorry for the delay. Sisters, please place the candle stands where they need to be. Don't forget to give a candle each to Jaharl and Tamelia as well. The priestesses of Saedra's shrine, all wearing similar robes as Asena, hurried about, placing the tall candle stands in an oval shape around the two Mahrians, with 3 on each side. Once they had given candles to the pair, they moved to the outside of the oval shape. Mother Myrene stood in between the pair and the towering statue of Saedra. Good, good. Now, join us in prayer, Jaharl and Tamelia of Mahri. The mother closed her hands together, interlocking her fingers, and bowed her head in reverence. Everyone else followed suit. Then a silence fell among them. Then a silence fell among them as the group filled with the sounds of the waves outside. They waited and waited until Mother Myrene began to speak once more. With each line uttered, the priestesses echoed what was said. Repeating each line, Jaharl and Tamelia joined in the prayers. Saedra, O glorious goddess, hear our lowly prayers. Allow our voices to rise above the noise. Before us, we honor you. We remember your kindness, for you saved Katos and Aaliyah, and thus saved us. Saedra, O glorious Saedra, witness our struggles and our leisures. Give us strength to endure, patience to persevere, knowing to understand. For you saved Katos and Aaliyah, and thus saved us. Saedra, O glorious goddess, provide us with challenge. Allow our might to be shown and learned from, as kindness is not weakness. A shield is lost without a weapon. For you saved Katos and Aaliyah, and thus saved us. Saedra, O glorious goddess, touch our souls. Let our hearts guide our words, as our words guide our thoughts, as our thoughts guide our actions, as our actions guide reality. For you saved Katos and Aaliyah, and thus saved us. After speaking this prayer 5 times over, Mother Myrene raised her hands and summoned 2 priestesses. They pulled from their sleeves a long, thin stick oiled at one tip, and lit that end with a nearby candle flame. Once the flames had caught, they moved to light the candles Jaharl and Tamelia held. With your hearts alight, take the flames to each of the candles around you. As you light a candle, speak aloud your vows to each other, your love between each other, for each other. Express it so Saedra may hear it, and we may be witness to your love. Jaharl thinking. Jaharl exchanged a quick glance with his friend, who stood resolute. At least one of us is acting like we have an idea on what to say. Tamelia moved toward the candle stand behind her and to the right. With the trembling hand, she tilted her candle toward the unlit wick. Once it fed grittily on its new source, she pulled back her candle and closed her eyes. After a short pause, she smirked. For his kindness and his patience. That's one way to get through this. Jarl moved to the candle behind him and to his left. He went about lighting it in the same manner, sans the shaking hand. He focused on the fire more than anything else. For what others see as stubbornness, I see as determination. Without turning, she moved to her left and lit the next candle. For what others see as timidness, I see as contemplation. As before, he followed with the same motions. This time, a smile crossed his face. For how she challenges me to be better than who I am. After he was finished speaking, she quickly made her way to the last candle. Out of the corner of her eye, she watched and waited for her friend to get into place. They lit their last candle at the same time and gave each other a nod. Together they made their third promise. We'll be there for each other, no matter what. Tears welled up into Amelia's eyes as the pair returned to the center. Charles caught the sight of his friend's turmoil and hugged her tightly, restraining tears from forming in his own. Hold it together, hold it together. Hold it together, hold it together. Hold it till we're out of here. Softly smiling, Mother Myrene looked on at the pair. Savor what you have. I have been a part of 2 callings, and there have been times I've wondered if the couple would even make it back to Saedra without fighting. Regardless, seal your affirmations of love for one another with a kiss. Answer Saedra's calling, and receive her blessing. Oh boy. Jahar stifled a wince as he calmly peeled Tamelia from his embrace. Her hazel eyes, still watery, darted this way and that as she tried to draw an answer from his. She sniffed loudly, causing him to laugh softly, which made her laugh as well. Oh, this is silly. Like a burst of lightning, Tamelia pulled Jahar in right as he was leaning inward, nearly knocking their heads together. They traded hot breath, then a pause. Hesitation followed. With closed eyes, they pressed their lips together. Hidden anger, attraction, confusion, disappointment in their friends and in themselves, and a myriad of conflicting emotions poured forth between the 2 friends, in a cascade of the unspoken. The moment passed tenderly, until they shyly stepped away from each other. Oh, to be shy of displays of love and youth. Rosanna gathered their sashes. Mother Myrene approached the 2, and revealed to them a small box, sealed on 2 sides with wax etched with complex markings, while the young priestess carried on with her duties. Here, within this box, is your blessing. Take it back to Mahri, and open it only then, so your families and friends may be aware that they too have received her blessing. And you have answered Saedra's calling. Dun, dun, dun. All right. That is the end of chapter 35. So we're on chapter 36, On the Way Back. Yes, so on the way back. The snow had let up little by the time the 4 left Saedra's shrine. If anything, the accumulation had increased heavily on the road back and the southern wall. The branches of the pine trees lining the northern side of the road had started to sag and droop from the weight of the wet snow. Blemishes of white even found themselves clinging onto the cliffside, though the group had a difficult time determining how much was stuck to the dirt and rocks, and how much the splotches were simply caused by the flakes being blown off the trees up the ledges some distance above. By blanketing the area, the weather had dampened the sound of nature, infusing it with a sense of serenity they had not quite experienced so far on their journey. Little in the way of talking transpired between them as they savored the tranquility. They knew that what they needed to do next, find Ripson and make plans to travel to Perail Castletown. Warmth from some hot lavender tea they drank at the shrine oozed throughout each of them, staving off the chilly grasp of the wintry weather. Without a loot to carry, Jahar opted to hold on to the blessing. A sense of purpose and pride emboldened his steps as they trekked back to Saedra. He glanced up the short hill, following what he could only guess was the road until it disappeared on the other side, and became mesmerized by his surroundings. The tightening knots within his body from before had been untied, and he allowed a smile to linger on his face as he dwelled on what to do next. Those 2 idiots are probably laughing it up with Cyrus at the Capitol. This is him thinking. Well, they won't be laughing when we find them and show them how you go about fulfilling your duties to yourself, your friends, and family, and your village. With gloomy clouds above smothering the sky, the group could only guess at the time of day. With some effort, they hiked up the snow-mantled hill before them, slowing their pace to avoid perspiring. They spied the gate a short distance ahead of them through the snowy weather. We should get to Milan's before dinner time, if we can find Ripson quickly. Dieter eyed the sky as he caught some falling snowflakes. He stuck out a palm and watched the flakes dissolve the moment after landing on his skin. I'm going to change this. There we go. That sounds nice. I was hoping the priests would offer us something to eat. Tamelia laid a hand on her stomach. At least they gave us some tea. If that Osena girl had her way, we probably would have been stuck at the entrance until we left the shrine empty-handed. Josephine tugged on her sleeve to straighten it out, brushing away some snow that had clung to her clothes. The tea was good, but I don't know why they took our sash. Jarl not only stopped asking his question, but also planted his feet in the snow and slid slightly backward. Simultaneously, the other three halted in their tracks as 5 cloaked figures glided from the wooded portion in the north, or to the north. Some 20 or so paces ahead of the 4, they lined up on the road, side by side, facing the group. Then, once in place, they stood still, almost like pillars moved into place by some unseen hand. Only their breath, cloudy in the cold, proved they were living. Proved they were living beings once they stopped moving. I don't like this. Are they wearing masks? Jarl kept facing forward, but side-eyed Dieter, murmuring to his wife. Be ready, the farmer growled, straightening his posture. The 5 strangers wore matching cloaks, feathered in white from the tip of the hood to the hem, which dragged behind them along the ground. Their pristine tunics matched that of the snow, and their white trousers snugly clung to their legs. Black boots, black as night, poignantly stood out, drawing attention away from most of the surroundings and their obscured features. All of them wore a mask, stone gray in color, etched into each one with black lining, the face of an owl staring intently forward and ready to strike. Dieter squinted in an effort to discern more details. Then he bellowed a remark to coax anything out of them. You 5 are a little far from seeming to be playing pranks. Leave, and you'll be spared an embarrassing lesson in pain. None of them moved, nor did they make any attempt to retort. Are you sure this doesn't have anything to do with the priestesses? Jarl studied the strangers' appearances to glean some possible clues as to who they were. Do you have ties to Saedra Shrine? One last passing reminder to return home with a blessing? A muffled snickering seeped from the center figure of the 5. With sharp movements, the individual unfastened the mask and pulled it away from his face. In his eyes, darkness danced. He grinned, baring his teeth, like a predator assured of its next meal. Surprise! Jarl and Tamelia looked dumbfounded at him, then each other, before seeking answers from Dieter and Josephine. I'm not one for pranks, boy. Dieter stood firm, clenching his fists tighter and tighter. What's this about? Do I look like I'm about to tell a joke? As quickly as he had removed the mask, Milan brandished a long knife with his free hand and pointed with his blade at each of them, counting aloud in a mocking tone as he did so. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, huh? A shame Ripson isn't here. That oaf needs to be dealt with. What's that mean, you little monster? The heated words came out of the farmer's mouth as a snarl. I demand an answer. You'll learn soon enough, old man. He paused as the other 4 unsheathed similar blades. A wicked grin cracked his face again as the tongue traced the edges of his teeth. He watched 2 of his former traveling companions cautiously step backward. How about now, Jarl? Do you smell it? The blood? Without warning, Milan flicked his arm forward. Dumbfounded by what was unfolding, Jarl stood rooted in place. Like a breaking dam, a deluge of thoughts gushed through his head. What is this about, Malam? Vanine, where are you? Hardwit, move! With what felt like the force of a runaway cart, Dieter shoved Jaharl into the snow. He caught sight of the shimmer of the dagger's blade as it flitted by, toppling into the snow somewhere on the road behind them. Malam's grin faded into an arrogant scowl. He softly shook his head, looking downward at the snow before lightly kicking at the fluff around his feet. You really shouldn't have done that, old man. I was saving my friend from a most horrible fate. Now you have my hands tied. At least he and Tamilia will meet their friends soon enough. Jaharl picked himself off the ground, leaving the blessing where it fell. Much of the snow on his cloak sloughed off, leaving matted patches of white desperately clinging where they could hold. Angrily, he glared at who he thought was a friend in an effort to coerce some sort of answer out of him. In a tone of a hushed whisper, a single worded question escaped his lips. Why? Malam ignored the question and pointed at Dieter and Josephine, issuing an order to the four masked individuals. Spare the younger two, but gut the older pair. There's something not quite right about them. Right as they began their attack, a collection of arrows rained on the five from behind. Most fell short, but a few found their marks, piercing cloaks as well as grazing one in the upper arm and another in the calf muscle. One, though, hit true, sinking deeply into the left side of Malam's lower back. He grunted out a pain-filled cry as he dropped his mask and grabbed at the wound with his hand. Blood drank in the surrounding white, consuming it greedily. His four companions, like light snow in the wind, dispersed toward the trees from where they had appeared. Shit! Malam spat, tasting iron as he did so. Then he hobbled as rapidly as he could into the woods. Don't follow him. With heavy hands, Dieter forcefully restrained Jaharl and Tamilia from giving chase. The farmer's gray eyes rumbled with disdain. He tilted his head toward the guards rushing their way. Let them take care of it. Tamilia bit her tongue as she noticed her friend trembling with rage. She followed his eyes from the point of entry the five had made into the woods to the speckles of red that trailed to the road, and eventually to the handful of guards, accompanied by Ripson. Moments later, one guard barked an order, which turned loose most of the other sentries to track down the assailants. This guard, along with another, and the monk, remained on the road and promptly reached the four. The quiet sentry pulled out a stick of charcoal and a piece of thick... That is not right. And a thick piece... How about this? Just a thick sheet of parchment, as she ready to write down any helpful details. The vocal guard, wearing a piece of plate mail with a sizable sapphire embedded in its center that imbued his blue eyes with a fierce determination, walked up to the four travelers. His long, wavy, red-golden hair, along with his rigid but clean-shaven face, made him look more like a ferocious statue carved from stone than an average man. The monk stopped short of the group and searched the area until he found Malam's mask. Once discovered, he picked it up to brush it clean. Turning it over and inspecting every grain of the object, he grunted as a worsening scowl hardened under his features. Ripson, what is going on? Josephine sighed as she tried to shoo away the anxiety that had tightened in her chest moments earlier. I warned you. I told you not. I didn't trust him. He showed the object to the guard holding the charcoal so she could sketch the mask's design. When I left you four this morning, I did some investigating and was kindly aided by the son of an acquaintance of mine. Acquaintance? My father would tell it a little differently. The handsome guard chuckled softly. Then he stood at attention and placed his right fist over his heart. I am Leofric, eldest son of Aldalric, one of the wardens of Perel Castletown. I am one of the captains here in Saemine. The four introduced themselves. Once finished, Leofric spoke again. It is a pleasure to meet you all, even if the circumstances are alarming. He bowed respectfully to each of them before turning to the monk. You were right, Ripson. Perhaps with this mask and my own testimony, we will help sway King Quentin's feelings on the matter. I would be grateful. Your father may be sick of seeing and hearing my pleas as much as the king likely is, but this is troubling and needs to be dealt with. And I think he's less sick of hearing and more wanting to resolve the ordeal once and for all. Jaharl finally shook himself free of his mental quagmire and worriedly dug through the snow. Once he fetched the blessing, he wiped it clean and exhaled a sigh of relief when he noticed the wax seals had not been broken. Then he looked at Ripson. What needs to be dealt with? What's going on? Your friend, Malam, is a part of the Ava sect. I've had my suspicions since we found him in the woods, or rather he found us. I did try to goad him into a mistake, but he kept to his lies. I couldn't simply speak out about it. It's not like you all fully trusted me, though I did inform Dieter of my thoughts. Hold on. Hopefully I didn't. Tamelia interjected. What's the Ava sect? You recall the schism, the split within my monastery? Josephine moved over to her husband and sifted through her husband's pack. Mother Myrene at the shrine also mentioned it when we were there. She didn't seem too thrilled to bring up your brothers and sisters. Ripson snorted. Quite the typical response in Parail, unfortunately. But that's neither here nor there. What's important to know is that inner conflict was never fully resolved. That is what I believe. The violent side, wishing to bleed everyone dry, did lose, but they were all not killed. In fact, a large portion of them were able to escape. They vanished, like shadows in the night. Yet, they didn't immediately retaliate. They hid and rebuilt themselves by plundering places far from Parail, places like Kolug. Cloaked in folk tales, they mystified the locals and brutalized them. I've been concerned about their resurfacing for years, and have made countless pleas to both my brothers and sisters, and King Quentin directly. The passage of time has blinded them all into believing the sect does not exist. They dismiss it entirely. There's disappearances to the north. They claim it's only due to the Sol, but even you have witnessed that is not quite the truth of the matter. The numerous homeless children who have started to roam around the streets of Sameen because they lost their families and friends from strange occurrences simply blame the mystical Cricker, a creature no one has ever seen. How about in Walleran? Do you remember hearing about Janine and Urian? Why do you think I had business to take care of when we arrived there? Why do you think I wanted to inspect that shrine in Falil Forest? Josephine passed a look to her husband. I think we get the point. And what about you two? Ripson eyed the Maharians as they stood as if in a daze. Tamelia closed her eyes in an effort to not cry. She felt a stabbing in her chest as she pounded her fist into her thigh. What does he know, Jaharl? What does Malam know? I'm not sure I can answer that. He quietly motioned for Josephine to comfort his distraught friend. He began to remove his knapsack. Not on your life. Ripson's arm shot out like lightning as he clutched onto one of the carrying straps. You wouldn't understand. Malam knows something about them. We need to get an answer out of him. He glared at the monk as he struggled to free himself. Don't be simple, Jahar. You barely escaped harm, thanks to Ripson and a good deal of luck. Immediately jumping into the teeth of danger is no way to thank him and the guards. It's a quick way to get killed. Dieter placed a hand on Ripson's arm, who hesitantly released the bag. When we bring them in, you can have plenty of time to pull whatever answers you need out of him. Leofric glanced behind him at the trees. Not a lot of space for them to hide in there. My men will have them wrangled up soon enough. However, his words and the simple act of doing followed two different paths. Though his words were spoken, assuring success, his men could not deliver on them. They returned to the group, who nervously wandered around, waiting on the road empty-handed. How? Arturo, explain yourselves. Leofric's voice boomed as he directed his scribe to write down the account on another piece of parchment. Sir, we dashed into the woods with Voln as the lead tracker. It wasn't hard to see where they went, but I'll be damned to know how they moved so fast. Voln, explain. It was as if for every step we took they had taken 5. Then the footprints stopped, vanished like fog in the morning sun. Don't give me that shit. It's true. Yeah, true, sir. Hugin added. Stifle it, Hugin. Let me do that. The sentry straightened his form in silent agreement. Leofric stretched his fingers and balled his hands. He repeated this a couple times to stave off the chill. Well, Arturo, they're not ghosts. We saw them bleed. We followed that as well, sir, but it stopped, too. We searched thinking they had some sort of hideout hidden in a false tree or some hole in the ground, but nothing. That's when we eventually found some blood on one of the branches. They had to have climbed up one of the trees like some damn squirrels and jumped to the next few before coming down near the cliffside. They had a rope they used. It was tied to something up top of that cliff. Must have been how they got down here in the first place. Damn. There's nothing but trees and mountains that way. To trek from Dole Air would take days, if not longer. Titan patrols around the northern walls. Let's see if they try to slip back in that way. Emmeline, after you finish writing, add in the report to carefully question everyone nursing a wound or trying to bring in or take out any balms, liniments, or ointments. Yes, sir. Good. Men, get back to Samin. Turu, Yugen, warn the priestesses. I'll send a few men to protect the shrine moving forward. Yes, sir. After barking their affirmation, the guards marched away to carry out their tasks, leaving the captain and the travelers behind. Leofric watched as his subordinates departed. Then, with a nod, he turned to the travelers. Ripson, after I make my report to the other Southgate captains, I'll only need a few moments to prepare. An eyebrow raised on the monk's face. They won't keep you stationed here? Leofric smirked. The benefits of family. Fair enough. Ripson mimicked the captain's smile. I'm mostly ready. I have to retrieve my club from the eastern gate. Good. And what of you lot? What exactly are you doing? Dieter scratched his forearm. We're going to head to Perail Castletown. Ripson and I are going to inform King Quentin of this attack. He must become aware of this. Joining my words with his own has to have some effect. Your accounts would only strengthen our testimony. Tamilia and I, we're going to head that way anyway. Her uncle is Mahri's representative on the king's court. Jarl readjusted his strap for his traveling pack. He inspected the case that contained the blessing again, making sure it was not damaged before asking his friend, "Unless you've changed your mind." Absolutely not. Her words squeaked out of her mouth. She cleared her throat and repeated so. No, absolutely not. Then we'll join. What we have on our backs is all we have other than our weapons at the gate with Ripson's. Good. And Dieter, Josephine? We know you have other obligations. The elderly farmers traded a silent understanding nod before Josephine answered for the both of them. We'll join you south to Perail Castletown. Beyond that, we can't not promise. For now, though, we will help how we can. I know you have other obligations. Ripson bowed appreciatively. I am most grateful. Well, not quite how I would like to continue them. I will relish in having more of our conversations. Dieter faintly smiled with his eyes. And I as well. Ripson returned the gesture. I echo his gratitude. Thank you, both citizens of Perail and guests of our beloved kingdom. Shall we set out for the South Gate? Yes, my wife and I are traveling light as well. What we have now, with addition to our weapons, that are with theirs, are all we have. Excellent. Captain Leofric clapped mightily, jostling the two Mahrians from their stupor. I'll procure the horses we need to get there by tomorrow's daybreak. We can get some rest before departing, while some sentries retrieve your gear. With their plans set, the six marched in the fading snow prints left by the guards back to Saline. The snow persisted, covering the scene of the attack, with nature intent on clearing it from existence. For now, though, the mask in Ripson's possession, the knife left behind buried in the snow, and the red stains of blood remained, silently mocking the group's many failures. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, so, surprise! I don't know how much of a shock or anything it is. I'm really not expecting that to be a big, too big of a shock. Yeah, I don't think it would. But that's just me. So, surprise. Yeah, so that is kind of so there's the emotional, so there's two separate climaxes going on for at least part one. So there's the emotional climax that just now happened. Well, not just now happened. The emotional climax kind of suddenly, with it being revealed that they didn't even make it to Samin. To me, that's kind of like oh shoot, and now they're just sort of trying to get through what's going on now, and then that's kind of the brief little action climax. And we just have this one little chapter left. So chapter 37, the stealing, as in steel, metal, S-T-E-E-L, the stealing of one's heart. In the captain's personal dining room in the South Gate house, the group sat around a rectangular table with their gear piled in the center portion. The aroma of freshly steeped mint tea wafted in the room, intermingling with the fading scent of their meal: roasted chicken seasoned with rosemary over split potatoes, and a couple of grilled carrots lightly peppered, that had been offered to them as Leofric tended to duties before leaving. Even with their bellies filled and bodies warmed, uneasiness nicked at their sides. At one corner of the table, Jaharl and Tamelia stewed over the ordeal with Malam and what he had claimed about Hardwin and Vanine. They silently sat with steam billowing out of their cups. Propping his elbows on the tabletop, Jaharl held his head in his hands. Tamelia folded her arms to serve as a makeshift pillow as she buried her face away from any prying eyes. Dieter, Josephine, and Ripson calmly sat at the other side of the table, mentally preparing for the night ride to Perail Castletown. The farmers kept to themselves, considering their own misfortunes and the whereabouts of their son and his wife. The monk eyed the blessing, still sealed despite being dropped, and then the Mahrians. He took a slow drink of his tea before rising to his feet. His move garnered a dissuading look from the elderly couple. He acknowledged them with a gesture, but continued with his intended course. After grabbing his mug, the monk took a seat across from the younger pair and waited for them to pull out of their malaise. When they didn't, he leaned forward and spoke no louder than a hushed tone. "Might not be ideal, but this is the best time we have to talk right now." Tamelia picked her head up. She rubbed her eyes, red from crying. After a couple sniffles, she ran the back of her hand under her nose. The emotionless stare she gave sufficed for as good an invitation as she was willing to give the monk. Jaharl brushed his hair back and slowly dragged his hands down his face. He didn't open his mouth, but still sighed, squeezing the air through his throat before exhaling through his nostrils. With his elbows propped on the table again, he rested his chin on his hands, looking at some of their belongings instead of the man across from them. "Why do you have that?" Ripson motioned to the blessing. "I need to know the truth." The two traded long side glances without a word between them. Eventually, Jaharl spoke up first. "Tamelia and I were asked by our village to get the blessing if we weren't able to find Hardwin and Benin." The monk's demeanor did not change. "Yet, you haven't been to the capital, so why did you accept the blessing?" "We had to. They were at the Great Bridge of Perail, and we were given those sashes when we arrived here. We were caught off guard by that." "And you didn't think to clarify that you weren't the ones appointed? That your friends could have easily gone down to Perail Castletown, and you have now jeopardized them, yourselves, and Mahri?" "We know!" Tamelia clenched a hand into a fist before restraining herself from slamming it on the table. She was not able to stop her tears. "And we wouldn't have come here first if that little cretin didn't need to be brought home." "Is that so?" He turned to Jaharl, who nodded. The monk scratched his jaw with his thumb. "Then I am to blame for that. I should have been more upfront with all of you the moment I suspected Malam's treachery." "Aye!" She pointed angrily at him. "Had you acted like a normal person and not some loon hopped up on bad honey half the time, we wouldn't have been so deaf to your suspicions." Ripson scoffed at her remark. "Little good placing blame now does. At least it makes me feel better. Look," the monk placed his palms on the edge of the table. "We're about to head to the capital, where we'll be given a chance to speak to the king. He's heard my protestations for years to no avail. However, your accounts may finally help sway him into action, to stem the tide before it breaks down the dam." "And what of your brothers and sisters?" This time, Dieter interjected. "Have you not tried to enlist more of them to support more of their support for your claims?" "Have you not tried to enlist more of their support for your claims?" "Countless times." Ripson slowly bobbed his head in agreement as a myriad of memories flashed before his eyes. "However, as I am sure you are aware from your visit, they do not believe. For a while, I suspected there were some still lingering supporters for the Ava sect within the monastery's walls. Now, though, I believe it has less to do with infiltration and more to do with a weakened spirit. When I was younger, we would send a retinue to accompany one or more learned brothers or sisters. We traveled far, to even places within the Aurelian Empire and beyond. However, once Brother Fulset became the headmaster, that ceased. We still have some brothers and sisters scattered about, such as a small commune in Torness and another in Clohall. Others still trek out, but do so on their own, much like myself to the capital. The farmer rubbed his hands together, contemplating what he had heard. And you don't suspect Headmaster Fulset? I need to stop doing that before I keep on hitting my keyboard. The monk's eyes drifted as he recounted every odd detail he could about his elderly brother. I'd be lying if I said I never did, though in the headmaster's case, I think the inner fighting left enough of an impression on him to believe that was the end of the matter. He did hear directly from those who were involved. What I fear is, in an effort to seek forgiveness, he shrunk us into the smallest form possible. It will lead to meekness, which is not what Atumu wants for us. It also morphs us into an easy target to be toppled, and I will not allow it. And it is regrettable, but nature never plays nicely. Weakness is an invitation for evil to impress upon others its will. Precisely. Ripson lightly tapped the surface of the table with his meaty hand before directing his attention back to the younger pair. And one other thing I must mention to you, too, is about Captain Hurod. Jarl scratched behind his ear. Captain Solern? The one at the Great Bridge? Yes, that captain. Tamilia's forehead scrunched up as she inhaled deeply through her nose. What does he have to do with anything? Pointing to the blessing, the monk kept his tone serious, but not condescending. He sees that, and we'll find ourselves being tossed over the side of that same... He sees that, and he'll find... Why can't I not read? He sees that, and we'll find ourselves being tossed over the side of that bridge, not crossing over it. Jarl turned to his friends, stretching his arms out on the table. He did question me about why we were heading west after you three left, while I was still on top of the tower. And as thorough as Captain Hurod is, he made certain to press me about your traveling as well. He also asked me about you two. Josephine chimed in before diverting her attention back to her husband. What should we do about that? It's something to consider, but for now, we have more pressing matters to tackle. He glanced around the room before continuing. For starters, we have to check to see how much longer Leofric will be. Its night trip will not be kind. 3 horses had been procured for the party's journey to the capital. Leofric and Tamilia sat on one. Dieter and Josephine sat on another. Ripson and Jaharl rode the last. Dusk had already come by the time the group was ready to depart Saemin. The 6 shielded themselves from the large flakes of snow still falling outside the southern gate. Each wore a shawl which had been provided to them, as well as their cloaks to protect them from the snowstorm that refused to relent. I'm surprised this thing didn't go off. Okay. Okay. Each wore a shawl which had been provided to them, as well as their cloaks, to protect them from the snowstorm that refused to relent. An early blizzard. Damned weather certainly is acting against us as much as it can. Mine will be met with thunder and lightning halfway there. Leofric spat as he leaned back to the guards. Close the gate. We'll be fine. Tend to your duties. Attention. They saluted. Yes, sir. Godspeed. Glory to King Quentin. He saluted smartly in spite of the thickening curtain of white obscuring the men's vision. And glory to Parail. Without further delay, Leofric kicked his steed into a moderate trot. How about trot? It's a moderate trot. It's a fish. A moderate trot, though not the pace he wanted. Caution served as a much better guide than foolhardy expediency. I'll light a torch after we're some distance from Saemin. Even with all the snow, it's not dark enough to worry me. I know I can navigate this road blindfolded. Lucky for us, then. Ripson surveyed the area. Anything we ought to keep an eye out for? Outside of some wolves every now and again. Our friends would be the only other concern. Anyone intruding on our path will be greeted with an axe to the skull. I enjoy the enthusiasm, Dieter. Better to pick up the pace and not even bother. Leofric nudged his horse to pick up the pace slightly. Ever deal with roadmen on your travels? I've had a few encounters. Good. You've come through the other side unscathed. The captain leaned back to better project his voice. As for the two younger ones, I have some advice. Sometimes marauders or gangs will toss out one of their own, usually weaker ones, to delay travelers. If they can't take weary travelers out, they'll try to slow them down so their strongest buddies can catch up. That's good to know, Jarl called back. Aye, Tamilia added. Dieter grunted as he brushed snow off of his shawl. You'd think they'd learn to put their thinking to better use. You'd think, but men are molded by their experiences and cast in iron by their decisions. Iron can still be hammered straight and true. Leofric laughed from his gut. Well said, farmer. The other four closely followed Leofric and Tamilia, staying on the road as best as they could possibly tell. As night fell upon them, the weather became more cooperative as the snow eased and the sky remained bright enough, despite the cloud coverage, to see the area surrounding them. After some time, they reached a rectangular stone pole lodged in the soil. Leofric dismounted and tied the reins to the stone. He did the same for the other two horses while the others dismounted. Take a break and stretch. The horses will appreciate it. We'll be able to pick up speed with the snow going away. Jahar and Tamilia drifted a short distance away, but still within eyesight of the others. He made sweeping arcs at the snow with his spear, as his friend pushed on the hilt of her sword, her eyes trained northward. Don't think about it. Dip your head in honey. Don't jump to conclusions. If they're hurt, I'll gut that bastard. Fair. Jarl sighed. What do you think of that Ava sect? From how Ripson and this Leofric guy are acting, they sound like big trouble. But I don't care. I'll gut them all if I have to. He sighed again. They're fine. They're fine. We'll find them. Shut up! Tamilia's eyes grew hot with tears. She struggled her way through the snow to her friend and shoved him. Don't lie to me. Stop lying to yourself. You know damn well they're in trouble. Or much worse. He braced himself and staggered a step backward, but didn't fall. We're doing what we can. Damn what we can do. She shoved him again and spat as she watched him shrug off the hit. Our friends need us, Jaharl, and we're heading south. We should have bolted north and hunted Malam and those freaks down like rabbits in the woods. And what? Get lost? Be as reckless as when they stopped us from chasing after Malam earlier. We're going to have an audience with the king. We can also talk to your uncle. Stabbing senselessly in the dark won't benefit us. I'll stab Malam's sorry ass in the dark. Tamilia clutched the hilt of her sword, unsheathing it slightly. And what if he does something to them now that he failed to do whatever he was planning to do to us? We'll stop him. Though not hiding his approach, Leofric surprised the two with his sudden appearance, who both reacted with a short hop, cutting their argument short. Apologies. I didn't mean to give you a fright. Now, we weren't scared, she answered as she crossed her arms. The soldier ignored the remark to continue what he originally wanted to say. Regardless, I overheard some of what you were saying. I suggest that you do not allow yourselves to be caught up in such hatred. It'll eat at you. Beyond the normal dangers of the dark, trouble is brewing, like an infected wound that won't easily heal. Instead, steel your hearts in preparation for the trials to come. Steal our hearts, Tamilia grumbled, rolling her eyes. Anything else, or are we heading out now? And we're leaving. Leofric motioned for the two to follow him back to the horses and the other three. Let's go. Without uttering a word, the six mounted their rides and journeyed toward Perel Castletown, riding deep into the night. Why? Why would he hurt them? In the draping darkness, Jaharl stared blankly out into the unknown. His eyes stung from the cold, but more from the hot tears welling up that he forced back. Heavily, his heart knotted into itself over and over again, while his thoughts soured, twisting into a sorrowful, raging plea. Malam, where are they? Vanine, Hardwin, please be safe. Dun 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 dun. To be continued. That is it. The end. So that is where part 1 ends up. So yes. Boom, boom, boom. So I don't know exactly how far I am on part 2. I was doing some stuff for it, and I was like, okay, this is still gonna be some time. So I'll try my best to get that done, especially because there's a third part, so I want to get those done. And friends and other people who have caught my little talks about it were like, okay, yeah, that seems pretty interesting. So, so the joys of writing. So, that is it. So, yeah, I guess next week we can start up on Saedra, which is a shorter book, but it is also a little bit. I mean, it's kind of unfair because I have this. Oh, I guess we could do it by the blind. It is a shorter book, but probably a little bit more poignant. You probably, if you go through and then you listen all through this, A, thank you. B, you notice that probably it isn't until you get to about this point or so that the tone really starts to harden. Like, the first chunk of the story, early chunk is a lot more warm, it's pleasant, and it's all fun. And then the middle part is, you're just kind of feeling stuff out and just kind of establishing everybody, and okay, here's all the sort of fun stuff. And then it starts to, I would say where things start to really turn a little bit more terse is chapter 26. From there onward is when it starts to turn tone, and that will continue for part 2. Part 3 will be very different, but part 2 will be it'll reflect much more in line to some of the tone that are going on in the back half of part 1, which you would think it would make sense, as that's the other thing too, right? So it's like part 1 and part 2, they're taking place really, really quick right after each other. So it's like it is. There's not a lot of we're going to take some time. No, it's right there, and you go. So that is that. I don't have anything else. So yeah. Well, the other thing is what would be the 16th. Yes. So Saturday, get back onto the Saturday reading, and so Saturday we'll get into Saedra. And I don't know exactly how I'll go about doing this, because the pacing for this is a little bit different. So, yes, that, and I might go through the index over time, because the index doesn't really have spoilers. It's more of yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. It'll be a fun thing to figure out. But we'll do chapter, a couple chapters or something with this one. This is a very different book. I'll read the little synopsis for it. The little thing at the back of the book. So, venture swiftly through the Silver Kingdom! Exclamation mark. Nestled in the eastern portion of the Faresh. Yeah, I totally put it that way. Haha. Fresh continent lies the kingdom of Saedra, a country fixated on promoting its cultural and historical prominence within its borders and abroad. From weaving majestic, how about majestic tapestries of the cunning Prince Narlin within a castle plated in silver, to building temples to curry favor with the legendary lovers Dreslin and Mial, to collecting literature from across the continent and beyond. For generations, Saedra's royalty has demonstrated to its neighbors that power does not simply lie at the tip of a spear. However, King Ablin V's marriage to a woman from the desert kingdom of Zelia has angered the lords of Sudraba, and whispers of rebellion menace the stability firmly built throughout the recent generations. One night, an adulteress fleeing from her husband and a thief intent on completing his job encounter each other in the streets of Sudraba, Castletown. Out of desperation, they flee from their troubles together, heading through the kingdom pursued by their separate problems. Their distrust for one another and their opposing views threaten to bring them to ruin, both to ruin. All right, let me read that again. Out of desperation, they flee from their troubles together, heading through the kingdom pursued by their separate problems. Their distrust for one another and their opposing views threaten to bring them both to ruin. Chasing the two is a group resolute on bringing them to justice for the pair's transgressions. As the kingdom around them creeps toward a damning precipice, they will push ahead to wherever their stubbornness will take them. This one will be interesting because this is a very the titular characters, the adulteress and the thief. I hate both of them. I'll just say that now. It's going to be a very the thief is an incredibly ugly character. And I'll just say that right now. It'll come out in the story. Like, it ain't gonna be a surprise. They are not a very good character. They are a ugly character, and it's it kind of makes you think of not to tie my paltry offerings to much greater and more well-renowned works, but I think of like some just very different classic literature. Think of I can never say his name right, Dostoevsky. I think like that. You've got characters, notes from undergrad. You've got a very irredeemable character who knows that they're irredeemable or believes that they are, and nobody's really there to help them. or better yet, there are some that do try to help them and then they deny it. Ain't that something? Oh. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. And that I as much as it kind of it's a dark book. It is a very ugly book. I am very curious to see how this goes. So, but yeah, that's it. Saturday, August 16th. 10 a.m. We'll start anew with that and go from there. So, thanks for watching, listening. I don't know, all the things you do. Enjoy your weekday, weeknight, weekend, everything in between. I'll catch you later. Bye, toodles.